Welcome into our Monday, May 23rd edition of the Sports Flash on the Sports Flash Media Network. My name is Joe Will. I'm joined by my co-hosts Tyler Shibish and Josh Clackler. Tyler, how you doing?
Good. It always throws me off that there's an L in Clack's last name. I mean, I guess it makes sense with all the L's he takes, but I always thought it was Clacker for the longest time. Every time I hear Clackler, it kind of throws me off a little bit. But that being said, Clack, how are you?
I'm great. I didn't know what show we're doing because I thought this was no off season and Joe plays the intro, so I don't know what we're doing. What else is new?
Well, Clack, a lot has changed. Get with the times, old man. A lot have changed since the last time you were here.
Yeah, let me explain this to Clack, but also whoever's watching that doesn't know. Aside from today's show, which there's a lot of Bama news for. Lately, there hasn't been too much Alabama-related news, and NFL-wise, I know the show is called No Offseason, but there's really not much to talk about. So, Clack, we're doing these little shows that kind of encompass all current sporting things going on. So, there you go. But we're glad to have you on.
Well, you just played the Bama Brigade intro, so.
Yeah, I know.
We're talking about Bama stuff, too.
We're talking about Bama stuff. So what I do at the beginnings, I play the Bama Brigade intro, and the end,
Brigade. You big Disney guy?
Oh yeah, for sure. That's on the dock. No, I play the Bama Brigade intro, and then at the end, I play the no offseason. I'm putting your hard work that you did for your videos. I'm putting it to use, Clack. So you should be grateful.
Well, I was like, I haven't been here in a while, and I was at the beach, and then I was here, and I was there, so I'm not even paying much attention. Anyway, what else is new? I never pay attention. Anyway.
Oh, you haven't been watching our show, Clack?
Wait.
I literally commented and texted y'all still doing the show, and it took y'all like 10 minutes to read it.
Mm-hmm. We're trying to get our site up off the ground, this network off the ground, and Clack just doesn't care. He's too busy at the beach.
On the beach.
At the beach.
With senoritas.
Okay,
drinking White Claws.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway,
no one tunes into the show to listen to us talk about sports. They want to hear about you and your senoritas.
So the Washington Commanders, they spent $100 million on land in Virginia for a possible new stadium. I think I saw a tweet that you liked, Joe, that I really thought was funny. It was like, Dan Snyder is the king of misdirection.
Yeah, it's
anytime
deflection.
He gets heat. Deflection, that's what it was. Anytime he gets any sort of heat, he manages to pull something out of thin air. Like, it's starting to pick up again. He's starting to get in a little bit of hot water. Oh, here's a new stadium. Love me.
Yeah, it's not even really a coincidence. It always happens. Like this time, a report came out, I think it was yesterday, about it. And then today, they say that, they're buying the stadium grounds. And then last time, something came out about Dan Snyder. And then it was like, oh, we've promoted Katie Feeney to head of our social media. She's done a great job with TikTok, and it's not like it every time. This is how they do it, and I've been all for a new stadium for a while now. It's been something I was all for, like the name change. I just think they needed a complete rebrand. Now the problem with the team still obviously remains Dan Snyder. But I like Ron Rivera as a head coach. I like the uniforms, the name change. I like that. The last piece of the puzzle is just getting a stadium, because you guys have never been to FedEx Stadium. At least, God, I hope not. But it's a horrible, horrible stadium. First of all, the team's called the Washington Commanders, and they don't play in D.C. Like, they're the Nationals, the Wizards, the Capitals, the Mystics. Every D.C. team plays their games in D.C. Like, if you're going to have DC in your name, like, that's something cool you should use. So, personally, I would love if they were able to get the old RFK Stadium and make that their stadium, but that's not going to happen. They play in Landover, Maryland. But I'm kind of going on a rant here about my frustration.
That's kind of like, you look at the the
there
Jets
are
and Giants.
there are teams that do it, but I think like you should, if you're able to, like you're not going to be able to put a football stadium in the middle of New York. There's just too much going on. It's definitely doable in DC. So I mean, I would prefer that. Now the rumor is that they're building one in like the Woodbridge, Dumfries area, Virginia, which is not a great place to build a stadium because it kind of alienates a lot of the fans. I saw immediately that there were fans saying, like screenshotting the tweet and being like, this is how long my drive would be in multiple hours down I-95, which is...
Well, that's just going to happen, though. Anytime you open up a new stadium, there's going to be some fans that live closer, some fans
No, but
that live
they were putting it in like the worst location. It would basically just be giving the middle finger to all like Virginia and Maryland. Like if you live in Maryland or the DC area, which is probably where a good chunk of the fans are, reside in, you're basically driving like 2 hours, probably more just due to traffic just to get to a stadium. And so I don't know how they're going to do it. I'd like to think that they're smart enough to figure out a reasonable way to do it. But then again, this is a Dan Snyder-led organization, so I wouldn't be surprised if Snyder takes some shortcuts on the stadium and it's all crappy. But that's my rant about this.
Yeah. Some other football news. Nick Foles, former Super Bowl champion, signed with the Indianapolis Colts. Yeah, Super Bowl MVP even. Signed with the Indianapolis Colts after being a free agent. His time in Chicago was, I think, less than great, right? He was riding the hype of winning like Super Bowl MVP, and then Chicago picked him up. He was kind of struggled. But, I think he's a solid backup still. I think you can do a lot worse, and I think the Colts are a good team for him to be a backup on because he has a decently similar play style to newly acquired Colts quarterback Matt Ryan. And so I think that's a often underlooked thing when it comes to backup quarterbacks is how similar are they to your starter, right? You look at like the Baltimore Ravens and what's his name out of Maryland? Tyler Huntley.
Oh, he's from
Utah. Utah is what I meant to say. I was
having
Maryland on the mind. Yeah, Tyler Huntley. And I don't think he'd be a successful backup or starter on a lot of other teams. But I think that the Ravens run a system similar, like he has a play style similar to Lamar, so the Ravens can run the system in the same way. Versus, like, you look at Lamar Jackson's first year, I was going to say freshman year, his first year with the Ravens, he wasn't as successful when he came in because they had the offense built around Joe Flacco, and he's not a Joe Flacco type player. And so I think having a guy that fits the system pretty well like that is going to be good for the Colts if Matt Ryan gets hurt. But I could be wrong, but I don't remember Matt Ryan getting hurt like ever. So
Matt Ryan is very, very underrated, and I feel like he gets a lot of unfair criticism. I mean, he's not amazing. His best years are behind him, much like Nick Foles, who Eagles fans love, will go down in history for what he did for them when Carson Wentz went down, just went on an absolute tear. But Matt Ryan, I think, is a very underrated quarterback and still, has potential to be just exactly what the Colts need. And then, like, we're talking about Nick Foles. I think Nick Foles is kind of the same, falls in the same boat. But if Matt Ryan does get injured, you have a very capable backup. Which I'm sure the Colts are hoping they don't have to do the whole quarterback carousel thing because ever since Andrew Luck retired, they have not been able to really find anyone. I mean, Phillip Rivers was there for like a season. He kind of sucked. Jacoby Brissett, like just it's a quarterback carousel. And so they're probably hoping that they can have Ryan give them, at least a couple years of decent, solid play.
Well, according to draftsharks.com, right? I don't know how reputable it is.
Sounds made up.
Matt Ryan has had exactly 3 injuries in his 14-year career and has missed a total of 3 games. So he got hurt in 2019. He missed 1 game with an ankle sprain. Got hurt in 2013 sprained his left shoulder and sat out the Pro Bowl, and then got hurt in 2009 and missed 2 games after suffering turf toe. So the man is as close to an Iron Man as you'll find. And side note, I do have to shout out my boy Kirk Cousins as well. He's an absolute tank that just never seems to get hurt for some reason. So
also very, very underrated, but at the same time slightly overrated. Yes.
Yes, Clyde?
What do you want, Clack?
I'm glad that Joe is not the in front office for any of my favorite teams, because Joe's quarterback takes are so bad.
You're glad I'm not the front office for the Yankees and the Duke Blue Devils and the LA Lakers and the Dallas Cowboys and all your favorite teams.
No. Your quarterback takes might be like if you were if I was a fan of a team and you were my team's GM, we would wind up with the 30th best quarterback in the league, because you see guys like Drew Lock make one good throw and you're like, oh, they're so great. Like the fact that you're higher on Drew Lock and
why do you always insist on bringing Drew Lock into this conversation? We don't need to bring Drew Lock into this conversation. It is known how I feel about Drew Lock
and Nick Foles than you are any
I think saying someone's a good backup is not being too high on them.
I think Taylor Heineke, horrible starting quarterback, not a bad backup.
Drew Lock.
I'm not Matt
horrible
Ryan
starting quarterback.
Anyway.
I'm not saying Nick Foles should start. I'm saying he's a solid backup. I mean, I'd rather have him than Blaine Gabbert or God knows Jacoby Brissett. I'd probably rather have Nick Foles than Jacoby Brissett. I'm not sitting here saying Nick Foles is a starting quarterback or he's a top whatever. I mean, you can't rope my Drew Lock comments into this, because I have a soft spot for Drew Lock and how he's going to lead Seattle to the playoffs this year.
Well, look, only 2 quarterbacks that I can think of in the league right now led their teams to Super Bowls as backups, right? One of them's Tom Brady. So, and then the other one is Nick Foles. And it was just a crazy run. And he's not actually that good. I mean to say he's not Super Bowl MVP level consistently. But I mean, you can do a whole heck of a lot worse, I think, than a guy that has won, the Super Bowl for his team, putting up 30 plus points a game en route. So I agree. I think Nick Foles is a pretty solid backup for as much crap as he gets as a starter. But
he's a respectable backup.
Yeah, I agree.
Just Clack is a respectable backup when we need him for this show.
Yeah, always on deck.
Anyway, next story.
Yeah, Justin Thomas.
Are we telling stories?
Yeah, Justin Thomas won the 2022 PGA Championship. Roll Tide. We're into Alabama news. What, he came back from 7 strokes down or something like that, I think. So
Clock's still the same thing.
I mean, he do what? Joe, are you okay?
Joe, I don't think Clack's ever got that many strokes.
I don't know what's going
after the game. Or after the tournament, he took some shots at Jimbo Fisher, right? The whole Jimbo Fisher, Nick Saban thing. He made light of the 24-hour and then move on policy that they have at Alabama. But I'm glad for Justin Thomas. He's been my favorite golfer since I went to the university, and it's good to have a little bit of success. I mean, I was a big Tiger Woods guy as a kid, but I mean, what do you guys think? You guys watch any of the golf? Any of the PGA tournament?
Yeah, I watched in overtime. I mean,
I was working, but when I do have the chance, I don't mind watching golf. It's super relaxing, especially on the weekend when you're just sitting there, you don't have much to do, and you turn on some golf. But it was cool. Obviously, I didn't get to see it, but I was able afterwards to once I got off work to see that Justin Thomas had won, and Auburn likes to stay there and everything's school, but Alabama kind of just, bringing home the dubs and all around.
Yeah, if you just ignore all the other sports this year, we brought home dubs all around.
Yeah, I mean, we'll ignore the softball team. We'll
and
talk
baseball and basketball and gymnastics.
I do kind of, because Clack wasn't here when we talked about the Jimbo Fisher Saban thing, I did kind of want to get his thoughts on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I mean, we've always known. You go back and look at Joe. Quit laughing. You go back and even look at when Jimbo Fisher was. Am I echoing or something? Or are you just like extra?
No,
giggly mood
there's
today?
a bit of a delay when you respond. So Joe is like, "Hey, what do you think, Clack?" And then we sit here and go, and then you respond.
No, I delayed because I didn't know if I was supposed to go or not. I mean, you
you weren't sure if you were supposed to go after, "Hey, Clack, what do you think?" All right, I'll hold up a cue card next time. Let me go find something.
And go. Clack.
You look back when Jimbo Fisher was at Florida State. What?
Talk.
It's your turn.
Okay. I'm trying to go and you won't shut up.
Okay.
You look back when Jimbo Fisher was at Florida State. There was always like the deal with Jameis Winston and all that. He's always seems to be in the middle of all the controversy, all the drama. It's the same thing here. I mean, Nick Saban was not necessarily throwing them under the bus. He was just saying a simple fact. I mean, everyone knows. They've paid. Through the NIL, they paid pretty much everyone they have. Since when it's Jimbo Fisher got the number one class until the NIL? Never. Suddenly NIL comes around, he gets number one class.
Didn't they have the number one class the year
everybody
before?
knows what it was, and then Jimbo Fisher just goes and no.
I think they were in
Jimbo
the lead
Fisher goes and gets on his high horse, and they were in the lead at one point, and that was like just they were in the lead. We were at like 40 at one point, but obviously I don't know how that turned out.
Gotcha.
But I mean, Jimbo just goes and gets on his high horse and spews all kind of garbage out there. And I mean, if you want to poke the bear, then go ahead. But we all know how that's going to turn out in October.
Clack, I hate to tell you this, but Bear Bryant hasn't been the head coach of Alabama for a long time.
Tyler, I'm the only one who gets to make horrible jokes on this show. And I thought that joke in my head. I didn't say it out loud. And you just had to do it. But obviously we're all on the same page, but we're also all incredibly biased when it comes to Alabama. But I think even as just a college football fan in general, unless you hate Alabama, which is probably likely for any college football fan, I think it's, it makes...
the fact that Greg Sankey was basically on our side, Steve Spurrier. I mean, I think everybody knows.
Kirby Smart, all the best
Lane
coaches.
Kiffin.
Yeah, all the best coaches were on our side. Like Nick Saban, what he said made sense.
Of course,
yeah. Kiffin's. I still think Kiffin's posturing for the job in the future. He has to be. He's too pro Alabama to not be.
Kiffin knows what happens when you piss off Saban.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jimbo just.
I mean,
Jimbo's
ready. We saw what happened when he did that.
Jimbo's always just been a boob. So I mean, this.
And then you go back and look at the things that he said, like defending Jameis Winston before he even went to court or anything. He was just whatever what the word is, defending Jameis Winston. And that's when I lost all respect for Jimbo. Jimbo's always been like this. It's he's always been a media clown that has.
Well, to be fair though, like what do you expect him to do in that situation? Not defend your Heisman quarterback? Like, I feel like you have to.
I mean, I'm just pointing out, like, he was already had a bad name in the media before. And this is Jimbo Fisher being a dumb, in the media is nothing new. This is just par for the course for him. I'm not saying. And you go back and look at, there was a game, I think the Clemson's national championship, where they lost like a 2-point game to Clemson, and he comes in, goes off on the refs, gets fined and stuff like this. Jimbo Fisher going off on stupid rants is nothing new. It's just Jimbo Fisher.
It kind of sounds like you. Stupid rants. No,
I mean,
but the thing about Jimbo Fisher is, I don't know if you guys saw this video. I retweeted it from Tide 100.9. Ryan Fowler, he put up the video of I think he spoke with Jimbo after Alabama won, and Jimbo waited for like an hour after we won that 2018 national championship just to congratulate Saban. And he, in the past, has been one of Saban's biggest supporters. So for him to just completely flip a switch in one day just seems so odd to me.
Yeah.
But I mean, we've all given our thoughts on it, and it's kind of old news now, except for Justin Thomas bringing it back up. But moving on to some pain, some real pain. Alabama softball. Yeah. They only played 3 games before they were eliminated from the whole shebang. 6-0. They lost to Stanford.
And I will say, what did I say last week? Right, their offense hasn't been great, and Stanford scares me. They're a pretty decent team in the Pac-12, which produces a lot of good softball teams.
You did say that,
and Stanford beat us twice. And we took 1 game off of them because it went to like it was a single elimination for us, double for them because they had already beat us. So we beat them in the first game. And then it went to winner take all, and then we lost. And Montana Fouts pitched and exited to a standing out.
Yeah, pitching Fouts back to back, obviously, if it works out for you, is a genius move, but it did not work out for them. And that's why I'm sitting here kind of questioning why this team relied. I mean, not why they relied so heavily on
words.
So heavily on Montana Fouts because she's an amazing pitcher, but at the same time, if you're relying on one phenomenal player and you're just kind of burning through her gas, I mean, you have to have pitchers that can step up.
I'm just saying, watch your words, because some people might accuse you of being an Alabama softball fake fan if you question anything. So,
I mean, technically speaking, I kind of am, because I can't watch the games. Like, there's no way for me to watch the games. But from the outside looking in, that's kind of what I saw to be an issue, was their over reliance on Fouts. And
Kilfoyle was hurt and then came back and did not pitch well when she came back, if I remember correctly. So
right. So Joe, I mean, I totally agree with everything you just said, because especially when you look at the game, she pitched over 100 pitches game 1, and you're going right back out game 2 30 minutes later. If it was a Sunday Monday series instead of Sunday then another game, maybe we would have been fine. But I mean, you can't expect her to go 300 pitches and not give up anything. And then the biggest problem that I notice is, through 4 innings, Montana was at like 80 pitches. Stanford's pitcher was at like 50. Like the fact
couldn't hit.
We got way too many first pitch outs, not enough taking. We had like 2 walks in that game. You cannot. There should never be a big discrepancy in pitches, like 80 to 50 in 4 innings. Was a big issue. They were getting contact, fouling a lot off. And it just wore her down. I agree with what you said, Joe, but at the same time, who else do you start in that situation? You have to go with your best, with your other best not available. So, I think that was the only thing we could have done.
I hate that I was right.
My biggest concern for...
Oh, go ahead, Clark.
My biggest concern going forward is the fact that, Coach Murphy is probably one of the top 5 coaches in the country. The problem is we're not able to hit. And I just saw today, Texas A&M is hiring Florida State's head coach to take their job. It's going to come to a point where all the best coaches are going to be in the SEC. You look at by the way, Oklahoma's going to be in the SEC in a couple of years, probably next year, the way things are going. Coach Murphy has got to get someone on this staff that can really coach hitting. We can't have all of these. It's like the SEC is going to be a power conference for softball. We've got to be able to do something to where we're able to hit at the levels of your Oklahomas, your Texas, Oklahoma State, stuff like that.
I hate that I was right, but also last week I brought up the parallel between softball and basketball, right? Both teams were super promising preseason. People had them penciled in as potential champions preseason. Started off real hot, won a bunch of games against really good teams, kind of tapered off towards the end of the year, and then going into the tournament, we were like, okay, this is where they turn it around, and then they just fizzled out.
It always comes back to basketball on this show.
I mean, it does, but the parallels are there, right? Like
they are.
Super promising team, like a good head coach, penciled in preseason favorites, start off hot, slow down, get washed, like rinsed in the tournament, and then get bounced like really early. And I don't know, give Alabama some credit. That was the first 2 games they lost in a regional in like 44 games. It was like since 2007, I believe, was the last time they lost a single game in a regional. So give Stanford some credit, more importantly. But very impressive. It's bound to happen eventually. And they had an incredible run at it. But, just can't hit. You got to be able to hit the ball. We scored, I think, a combined, 10 or 12 runs or something through the 4 games we played.
Wait, Tyler, you're telling me you have to be able to hit the ball to win games?
Yeah, apparently. Who knew?
That's crazy. Clack, give us your SEC baseball tournament preview. You wrote an article for our sportsflashmedia.co, not .com, .co. So you guys can go check that out on there. It's the name of it's down low. Clack, give us your article summary.
Well, I mean, obviously, tournament time starts tomorrow. If you're a team like Alabama, you have to win tomorrow to even have a chance at getting a regional berth. So, I'm looking forward to it. Bama plays bright and early in the morning, 9:30 Central.
You gonna be up for that game, Clack?
I will be up early and at the game because it's an dangerous Hoover.
I know you like to drink the night before, and I don't want you to wake up all hungover.
I'll be there. Trust, I was hungover.
We need you dialed in, Clack. We need you dialed in, locked and loaded, ready for this game. No Trulies, no White Claws tonight.
I'll be there tomorrow with bells on, ready to go.
Hopefully the bells aren't too loud. They might give you a bit of a headache after you pound some White Claws before bed.
Yeah, at least I know cowbells, right?
That's true. You could be that guy.
At least you're not playing that over here. But yeah, I'll be there. We've got to win. Tomorrow's the must win. We lose tomorrow, season's over. No matter what happened, great series this past weekend. Glad to get the win, but it doesn't erase the struggles we had in SEC play in midweeks. That's still going to come back to haunt us unless we can really make a run in Hoover. And that's, we're on the easiest side of the bracket. We don't have to face Tennessee, thank goodness, because they are by far the best team in college baseball. So yeah, we can come in and win tomorrow. Then, we're getting there, but lose tomorrow, season's over. See you next year.
Yeah, that wasn't a gun reference because I know the game's in dangerous Hoover with the locked and loaded comments. So
yeah,
I'll make a hot take right now. Tennessee is not going to win the College World Series. It never seems to be the best team. Very rarely. It's always just the team that gets hot. And so I'll make that prediction right now. Tennessee might be the best team by far in college baseball, but they're not winning the College World Series.
Okay.
So, bookmark that. Hey, some more Alabama stuff. Matt Jones in the best shape of his life after changing his diet. I really love stories like this, right? I think they're so funny because every year there's about 100 players that.
Clark, are you mailing a letter or something?
I'm tweeting our live show because.
Every year there's about 100 players that added 10 to 15 pounds of muscle and are in the best shape of their lives. I saw one for Amari Rodgers from the Packers. I saw a couple other ones. And so I just think that's funny every time. It's one of those, you could start a drinking game and get more wasted than Clack on a Tuesday afternoon. If you took a shot every time you saw X player is in the best shape of their life. I think that's one of the biggest non-stories in my opinion.
Well, I agree with you, but I mean, Mac Jones, I don't know if he could get in worse shape, to be honest. You can only go up from there. So I tend to, I'm going to believe the fact that he's in the best shape of his life because he had a big old gut and apparently was eating too many cookies from his girlfriend. I guess his girlfriend was making him chocolate chip cookies. I saw like a TikTok or something about it. TikTok's always true, by the way. But yeah, I don't know. I believe it. He's a hard worker. I mean, this is the same guy who sat behind Jalen Hurts and Tua for, all those years and waited patiently for his turn and busted his butt. So it is oversaturated with best shape of the life comments, but I think that in this case, I do believe it.
But like the thing about Mac Jones too, this is going to sound bad, but his game doesn't really rely on that much athleticism. So how much does adding, getting a little bit leaner really do for him?
I disagree. I mean, he's not like Lamar Jackson running quarterback, but you want a quarterback that, can be light on their feet and move around the pocket, which he did a pretty solid job of that last year. So, if he's losing weight and he's in the best shape of his life.
Ow.
What?
I said, ow. Sorry, I popped my foot and it hurt.
This is a shambles show, but I'm for it. But no, I think even if you're not a mobile quarterback, it's important to have quick feet and be able to move around the pocket and be athletic. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is not like a fast guy, but I mean, he scrambles, and Mac Jones has actually done okay when he's had to scramble.
I think mobile quarterback is too limiting of a term. Like, I think people use it when only to describe someone that can run, has a lot of straight line speed. But I think mobile quarterback, I think we should start applying that to like good pocket movement too, right? Like,
yeah,
I'm going to campaign for Tom Brady to be labeled as a mobile quarterback. You see the way he moves around the pocket, it's very impressive. And
yeah,
so,
we'll call it elusiveness or pocket awareness is basically like the actual name for it.
Pocket presence, yeah.
Yeah. And that's Brady's made his bread and butter off of that, and he's not athletic. And the parallels that are always drawn between Mac Jones and Tom Brady. So there you go.
Hey, I will say, as I made fun of Tom Brady the longest time, and then I went to the draft in Nashville in 2019, and I tried to run the 40 because the whole time I was like I could outrun Tom Brady, and I did not come close. So sometimes you don't think about the fact that like Tom Brady is a lot more athletic than the average man. It's just he's compared to a bunch of freak athletes all day.
Yeah, that's why they pay him the big bucks, and we're sitting here talking about sports.
He ran like a 4.7 or a 4.8 40, and like I ran like a 5.1 or something. So to be fair, I didn't have combine training and a bunch of years of college experience.
I think you'd do okay, Tyler, if you had some.
If I trained, I might be able to. But anyway, yeah, that's another thing too, is how ridiculously athletic pro sports players are. That often gets underrated. I think the only one that like people can be legitimately slow and still prosper in is baseball. Like you could be a big slow first baseman.
Whoa! You're telling me that Bartolo Colon is not athletic,
or like Prince Fielder,
big
or something
sexy
like that? Yeah.
Prince Fielder. That man could crank a ball.
So are y'all saying that just because you can't run that you're not athletic?
Sorry, I mean traditional athletic. Like they're obviously athletic and they have incredible hand-eye coordination, incredible reaction speed.
That's not athletic.
Well, there's
not in the traditional sense.
There's conventional athleticism.
This is literally the slowest player in Major League Baseball.
Yeah,
he's
exactly.
A catcher though.
He's strong.
Baseball.
He's strong and has incredible reaction speed and all this, but I don't think he's traditionally athletic, right? If you put him in a room with like an NFL player, an NBA player, an NHL player, he'd be the least athletic. But that doesn't mean he doesn't do what his sport requires extremely well. And I think that's true for most baseball. Like obviously there's some crazy athlete baseball players as well. I mean, a lot of outfielders are like that. Someone like Ronald Acuna, like being as strong and fast as he is, like he's insanely athletic. But I think that in baseball, there's more leeway. You can play catcher, you can play first base, you can pitch. It's not as big of a deal. So it's the equivalent of like being a kicker in the NFL. I'm digging myself into a big hole for all the baseball fans watching, but
I'm a baseball fan and I'm watching.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like NASCAR, right? NASCAR, I don't think you'd consider a NASCAR driver like athletic, but they do what they do really well. Anyway,
I mean, you have to have certain talents to be good at that.
Yeah.
Like I said with baseball, like you have to, the reaction speed is insane for fielding and hitting. Like you have to see a pitch come out of their hand, and within like a tenth of a second, you have to know if you're swinging and when and where. Like, and that's just so insanely difficult. Hitting a baseball, maybe this is a hot take. Hitting a baseball at the pro level might be the hardest thing to do in any sport. I think
consistently hitting it.
Consistent. Well, yeah, like being like a 300 hitter. And that's just like, so you put someone like me in the box, right? You put me in the batter's box. I go up to hit. I'm striking out 100 times out of 100 right now. That's without adding like fielders or anything like that. And so not only do you have to get used to, like maybe if they just threw fastballs, I'd get lucky and make contact on one or two of them. But if they use like a full pitch repertoire, there's no chance I'm not striking out 100 times. And so not only do you have to get that down, but then once you start to be able to hit the ball in the first place, you have what, 8 guys on the field, 9 guys on the field, counting the pitcher, that are trying to catch the ball or like prevent you from getting to first base. So,
yeah, no, I completely agree with you.
Honestly, though, I'm gonna go. I agree with both of y'all, but I think that at the same time, baseball in a way requires more athleticism than a lot of sports because, I mean, how hard is it to hit a 100-mile-an-hour fastball coming at you and all that? But like you say, it's a different type of talent than it is, to be able to run a route in football and outrun, people who are running just as fast as you or whatever, or throw a ball 60 yards, if you're Patrick Mahomes, 80 yards down the field. It's a different type of talent. Each sport, football, basketball, baseball, all has a different type of talent that it requires.
I think
it's like somebody like me could thrive at a sport like baseball, but I couldn't be good at basketball because I'm almost a midget.
Yeah, I think hardest thing in sports, right? You got hitting a baseball, you got being a high level quarterback because you have to be able to read 20 players on the field, and then also throw like a big egg 60 yards down the field exactly where it needs to be over 20 people. And then I think being an NHL goalie, just the reaction speed and the flexibility and like the movement that you need to have to be an NHL goalie, I think is oftentimes underrated. Like, especially with how good a lot of those hockey players are. I don't know. Anyway.
Hockey.
And we're watching. The Blues are playing tonight. Let's go Blues. I got to go grab my sweater. Hold on. I'll be right back.
Moving on from our little side rant there. I don't know if you guys saw this, but the SEC is considering to do like a. Where did he actually go to get it?
Yes.
Oh, it got really quiet all of a sudden, and I was like, I'm not paying. I'm reading this article, but the SEC is considering doing their own like playoff before the actual playoffs start. This was reported by Pete Thamel of ESPN. Clark, what do you think about that?
I mean, I'm not read enough on it to really have much of an opinion.
Bravo to Tyler. I did not think he was actually going to do that.
Yeah, it's my sweater. Let's go Blues. What are we talking about?
We're talking about the SEC saying that they're going to do like their own playoff.
Yeah, I saw that in our thingy. I never heard about that.
It kind of fell by the wayside.
With all the Nick Saban drama.
Yeah, no, this is like from today. Yeah, so
I think
SEC
that
commissioner.
Would be interesting, but I think that it would also throw a big monkey wrench in how they do the national championship. And I as much as I don't love the current system, I would hate to go back to a system where there's like 4 or 5 teams that claim the national championship, right? Like, even when UCF did it, it just irked me. Maybe it irked me a little more because Alabama won that year. But I don't know. I think that having an SEC only playoff would do exactly that. unless they're planning on having an SEC playoff and then like the top SEC team just automatically going to the national championship game. But then I feel like, 4 other Power 5 conferences would be very upset that an SEC team would be guaranteed to go to the championship every year. Granted, it basically already is, but it's not like 100% guaranteed right now.
Yeah, I don't think it is really doable, but it's an interesting concept. Just want to say, I'm a horrible co-host. I'm watching the Yankees game on the side here. Mm-hmm. And I would just like to say that Aaron Judge is really just not human. He's not human. We're going to talk about this later. I'm sitting here watching him hit his second home run of the game. He's hit 17 this year. 17 home runs.
That's ridiculous.
That's insane. Sorry, but I had to say something about that because I don't think I've ever seen anybody have this go on this tear that he's gone on in recent years.
Well, and the crazy thing is like Stanton is also going off at the same time he is.
And people always talk about baseball as like not entertaining. I don't know how you can watch the New York Yankees this year and not be absolutely entertained.
I think to the average person, like a 9-inning, like 1-0 game is pretty boring. I will admit. But the Yankees are special because they're gonna, and if you ask Clack, they have the worst pitcher in the league. So they also give up a lot of runs when Garrett Cole's pitching. So
no, well, it's just I don't know. I can see where people come from when they say baseball is boring. At the same time, I think if you have the time to watch a couple games here and there, there's teams like the Yankees, teams like the Dodgers that have these loaded lineups that are super fun to watch. Mm-hmm. As long as you're not a fan of, one of the teams playing them. If you pick a couple teams like that or teams that, like the Mets, they have Max Scherzer, just an entertaining team to watch. There's plenty of entertaining teams to watch. And the Yankees are definitely one of them. I guess it's not completely a random thing to say, considering we have baseball next on our docket here. Mm-hmm. And guess who came in at first for the MLB's Week 7 power rankings this week?
Probably Yankees. The Yankees. They had the best.
Yeah, the Yankees. They've got 5-1 World Series odds. They had the spot last week. They sat at 1, followed by the Dodgers or 2. I don't know if you've had the chance to watch. I think the Yankees and Dodgers is kind of splitting hairs at this point. I do think the Yankees have better pitching and all around, just a deeper, 1-9. Deeper lineup as far as hitting the ball. The Dodgers have had some trouble with guys like Max Muncy and Bellinger's kind of heating up, recently, but he's struggled as well. Then rounding out the top 5, he's got the Astros just with their same core of guys: Altuve, Uriel Alvarez, Justin Verlander. Like
you
the
just
same.
Combine 2 people, unless you're.
Or what Uriel? What's Uriel?
It's Yuri Gurriel and Jordan Alvarez.
I was thinking of Jordan Alvarez, but just basically
Yuli,
the same.
Sorry, it's Yuli Gurriel. Why?
Okay, I'm terrible at pronouncing names. Let's put that to
Alex Bregman. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I hate Alex Bregman, but as much as this is basically the same lineup. Enough. This is basically the same lineup they've had. Mets are at 4, and then the Brewers are at 5, which I think the Brewers are kind of overrated, in my opinion. Like Clack said earlier in the show, I think it was Clack, or was it might have been you? Which one of you said that they had the easiest schedule?
Me. They did, I think, have the easiest schedule, strength of schedule. Oh, God, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, other than that, I agree with the list. Maybe I've been really high on the Angels this year. Their bullpen has been kind of crappy, but other than that, and then I think the Giants, they were at 7, they fell to 10. I think the Giants are still a really great team. They just kind of had a rough couple series. And the Padres are sitting there at 8, waiting to get Tatis Jr. back, or sitting there at 6. Actually, they're at 6. They were at 8, so they're in the conversation as well. Obviously, they are loaded with talent and solid pitching.
Let me read you 2 baseball reference stat pages.
Okay, you're the stat guy, so hit me with the
I
stats.
am the stat guy. I love stats. I'm a huge stat nerd. First player has in 20. This is just for 2022. Has 2.2 WAR, right? Wins above replacement. For those that don't know, that basically means they calculated that with him in there, they've won 2.2 more games than if he was someone like an average player. 36 hits, 7 home runs, batting .286, 20 runs, 22 RBIs, 3 stolen bases. Player 2, 0.7 WAR, 108 at-bats, 29 hits, 2 home runs, 269 batting average, 15 runs, 14 RBIs, 0 stolen bases. Player 2 is Carlos Correa, former All-Star, went to the Twins. Player 1 is Jeremy Pena, the Astros' new shortstop, who they called up this year, rookie, making his debut in the league. He's outperforming Carlos Correa in every single major statistical category. That's insane. They lost an all-star who's considered maybe the best free agent shortstop in the league. And this rookie that they brought up, he's 24 years old, making his debut in the MLB, is outplaying him in every stat. It's so crazy to me how they just... Jeremy Pena just, I mean, obviously it's early, right? We're only 40 games in, but still, that's just super crazy to me how much he's outplaying him. It's a whole 1.5 wins above replacement above him, too. You got muted, bud.
I think I muted myself just to, calm the crowd who probably thinks my voice is annoying. But I was saying that you're talking about.
You did it again. Stop doing it.
Joe.
Okay. The Astros, they called somebody up who's having success, but this is kind of a common theme that we're seeing, which is pretty cool. I think previous shows I've talked about the Marlins with Jazz
Chisholm
Jr.
Chisholm.
And then the Orioles just called up the number 1 prospect, Adley Rutschman, who his first at-bat, he had, I think it was a triple. And he's already been hitting well for them, which is cool. And then Tyler, I'm sure he wants to talk about, Nolan Gorman and Liberatore.
Yeah.
Gorman's been solid. Liberatore, obviously, you're a rookie pitcher, so your first outing is going to be a little rough, but I think there were some things to like from his first outing.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, his first outing, one of the closest comparisons I saw was Jack Flaherty's first start. Went the same number of innings, gave up around the same hits, and basically the stats are pretty much the same. Flaherty had twice as many strikeouts, but he had more walks, I think. But yeah, Gorman, he started 2 games, played in 3. He has 5 hits through 3 games. He has 4 hits in the 2 games that he started. He's been really solid, man. I was worried. Granted, it's against the Pirates, right? Maybe the worst team in the league. But I think that's a big confidence builder, and he's slotted into second base. First game he started, I was watching very intently because I remember hearing his defense was bad, but he made a bunch of defensive plays as well. So I'm super excited for Nolan Gorman, I think, because we were waiting all year, especially with Paul DeYoung getting sent down. Like, will he get called up this year? And he did, and I think he's going to stay on the roster for a good amount of time. And I think, interestingly enough, side note, I think Tyler O'Neill gets sent down to AAA pretty soon if he doesn't turn it around. And I think another young player in Lars Nootbaar slots in over there and maybe gets a chance to stick with the roster because he just came off a 3 home run game in AAA and got called up today. And then Liberatore, he pitched 4 2/3 innings, gave up 4 runs, I think. But to be fair, the Cardinals are a team lauded for defense, and 3 of their starters got hurt right before the game or right during the game. And those were like Harrison Bader, Tyler O'Neill, Dylan Carlson. So they had Tommy Edman playing center field, who had only played center field once. They had Corey Dickerson out there and left. Basically, the defense was in shambles, and I think he would have gave up at least 2 less runs if they had the starting defense in there. So I think he did solid. He was missing the zone a little bit and got behind, and it caused a few mistakes. But overall, I mean, he's a rookie, and I think he had a pretty decent outing, and I hope he can build on it. And you can't be worse than Jordan Hicks. Jordan Hicks has not been good as a starter.
Yeah,
he needs
Jordan
to get
Hicks.
Back down to the bullpen.
Hicks has been terrible, and I think, like we talked about, Liberatore, he showed some promise. And the biggest thing with rookie or just young pitchers in general is the command and the control, and
that's exactly what he struggled with a little bit.
You kind of tend to see them typically struggle with that. But like I said, we were talking about this before the show. I'm kind of excited. I'm getting secondhand excitement as a non-Cardinals fan just from watching all these top prospects that they have. They have a very deep farm system. I think it's kind of just something they've always done well, is just developing players. And, some of those guys aren't going to pan out, but I think we've seen a lot of their top guys are promising, and it's a great mix of youth and experience, because you got these young guys, and then you have guys like Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado, Yadier Molina, who we talked about earlier, who's a legend. I mean, this is just – I think the Cardinals are poised to make I think they're poised to make a run this year, but I think the future is very bright for them.
I agree. And one last thing I'll say about the Cardinals. Well, I guess a couple last things. So Matthew Liberatore got sent back down AAA after his performance. And then lucky for him, not lucky for Steven Matz. The next game, Steven Matz, our next pitcher slotted in, got injured 4 pitches into the game. So Liberatore got called back up because he got put on the 15-day IL. So Liberatore will get a second chance. Ivan Herrera, he's supposed to be the heir apparent to Yadi. He's our catcher. He's, I think, the 99th ranked prospect in the MLB Top 100. He got called up and is going to make his catching debut for the Cardinals because Yadier Molina got put on the bereavement list, which I had to look up that word. It basically means mourning or grieving. So someone close to him unfortunately passed or something tragic happened, and he needed to step away for a little bit. So I hope everything's okay for Yadi. But Von Herrera is going to start. Jordan Walker, third baseman, was the 20th overall prospect. He's in Double-A, I believe, right now. And obviously he's probably not going to play third base with Nolan Arenado over there. He'll probably move to first base because I think his timeline is similar to Paul Goldschmidt retiring or being older. And then finally, I'm also excited for Mason Wynn. He's this shortstop prospect we have. I'm solely excited because his fielding throws were in the 99th or 100th percentile on speed to turn double plays. He can throw a ball from the shortstop position to first base at 90 something miles per hour. And it was super cool watching because it's basically the numbers back up that you can turn a lot more double plays when your shortstop can throw the ball super fast like that. And so he's a very interesting prospect to watch.
Better than Paul DeYoung.
Maybe. I mean, he's also in single A or something like that right now, and he's only 19 years old.
True. It's hard to know. And then, sometimes you find your rarities that'll come up through the system, and this year's draft can come up fast. And it's about finding a diamond in the rough in baseball, and sometimes it's just hard to do.
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? Is most players in the league aren't first-round picks because there's only so many first-round picks, and there's a bunch of players. It's the old fallacy that you hear about in the NFL draft, right? Where 70 or 80% of the players in the league aren't first-round picks. But you think about it, and you people use that as a inspiration to players that didn't get drafted I think the big one I was thinking about was that there's more undrafted players in the Hall of Fame than there are first rounders. But if you think about it logically, there's 100,000 times more undrafted players than there are first round drafted players. So it makes sense. Kind of same with baseball. Joe, Nationals got some good news.
It's been a rough year. I mean, we're in rebuilding mode, and there's obviously you've got Juan Soto, Josh Bell's been great. Keibert Ruiz, who we got from the Trey Turner match.
Hey Bear.
Yeah, he's been solid. Josiah Gray's been pretty solid, but Steven Strasburg is their ace, and obviously he's been banged up ever since the World Series run, and he was supposed to be back. He's supposed to only miss a couple weeks of the season, but it kind of spiraled out of control. There were some issues with his recovery timeline, and he's finally pitching tomorrow night in Fredericksburg both him and Joe Ross, Joe Ross is also not a great pitcher. He's not like Steven Strasburg, like caliber, but he's a decent third or fourth guy in your rotation. Both of them are doing their rehab assignments, so that's big. I think they're kind of both on the same timetable as far as returning. I don't expect the Nationals to make a run at first place or get a wild card spot or anything this year, but if you can get Strasburg and Ross back to their normal selves, back to reasonable health, and then pair that with the talent that you have, I think the quote unquote rebuild that you're doing, it doesn't necessarily last as long. Like this could just be maybe a 2-year or even 3-year thing, and then we see the Nationals back to doing what they've been doing for the last decade, which is being competitive and always being in the conversation for playoffs. I mean, some of that's dependent on their farm system, which has been a bit of a letdown. They've had a lot of top prospects not really pan out, but obviously seeing Strasburg and Ross get out on the mound is going to be huge. And I don't know if there's a way to stream the game or whatnot, but I'm going to try and find a way to be dialed in on this, and hopefully they both. I have low expectations, but hopefully they exceed my expectations and pitch well.
So, Clack, as our resident Yankees fan, do you want to explain the whole Josh Donaldson situation?
I mean, I think I haven't read into it enough to really know to say much. I know Tim Anderson has called himself the next Jackie Robinson, so I think that. I think the comment was wrong, and he did deserve a suspension. I do think that's what he was getting at. It wasn't intended to be a racist incident. It was just he was just kind of mocking him for what he said. I think that's what it boiled down to. But let's remember that back when the teams played in Chicago, Tim Anderson tried to start a fight. Then the benches did clear, but didn't really turn into anything. And then I think Donaldson was just kind of still pissed about that and got a little bit out of hand.
Well, yeah, for those that don't know, basically, like Clark was saying, Josh Donaldson, third baseman for the Yankees, got in trouble for calling Tim Anderson, the shortstop for the White Sox, Jackie, in reference to Jackie Robinson. And a lot of the White Sox players, Tim Anderson himself, alleged that it was something to do with racial issues, like Josh Donaldson being racist, and Josh Donaldson and several of the Yankee players alleged that basically it was just him referencing what Tim Anderson said. And I'm kind of inclined to agree. And I think that Josh Donaldson's just kind of a meathead and didn't think about how that might be perceived. And at least maybe that's what I would like to believe, because maybe I'm trying to see the good in someone that was doing something really stupid, but
I think that's just too. I agree with Tyler. I think that Josh Donaldson's kind of a meathead. I don't think he was trying to be racist or make a racist comment. I think it's oddly specific for somebody to be racist. Like in a 2019 interview, he literally refers to himself as he's trying to be the next Jackie Robinson, like the modern day Jackie Robinson, I think was his exact words. So Donaldson saying this, taken out of context, like everything else in media nowadays, it's going to sound and look really bad. And that's why that Major League Baseball suspended him for a game. But I think it's ridiculous that he's even being suspended. It was not interesting, but he went on the COVID list. So it's going to be, he doesn't have COVID, but he has COVID-like symptoms. So it's going to be interesting to see, like, whenever he does come back, like, obviously he'll have to serve that suspension. Mm-hmm. But I think that, like everything else nowadays, it was blown out of proportion, taken out of context. And I think it's absurd that he's even being suspended. It was a stupid move on his part. But at the same time, he's just referencing something from an interview that Anderson literally said. I think Anderson's just being bitter, and I think there's just bad blood between the two teams, so they're looking to screw each other over in any way they can.
Yeah. we were going to talk about basketball, but it's running kind of long. If you guys want to just talk about that next show, or we can talk about it now real quick if you want to do some.
But if you could just talk about it real quick, the Heat are getting blown out right now. They've got like 1 point. I think it's 4-25. So
Really?
I didn't think they would win the game, but I at least thought that they would, keep it within the 7-point spread. But what are you gonna do? I mean, the Celtics came back, I think, from down 26 last game, and the game before was like 19. So no leads really safe in the series. But I think that Boston, this is their big bounce back game, and they cover that 7 points.
There have been 2.5 times as many minutes played right now as the Heat have points. Like, there's 2 minutes left in the first quarter. The Heat have 4 points. That is insane.
I think this. I tweeted stick a fork in the Heat. They're done. Time to move on to Game 5. Like, I genuinely think that that's the case with this team. But
yeah, and then my Golden State Warriors, big win last night. They've won a away game in the last 26 playoff series, expanding their NBA record. Fun fact, I saw LeBron James won an away game in 29 straight playoff series, but that was with like 4 different teams. But yeah, it's so for those that don't know, in the beautiful game of basketball, when a team has a 3-0 lead in the playoffs, they're 146.
It's the kiss of death.
Yeah, they're 146-0 in winning the series. Granted, the Warriors were also the first team to blow a 3-1 lead in the finals. That being said, I just don't think the Mavericks have the juice. I think the Mavericks overperformed this year, and they have a lot to look forward to. Luka is an absolute monster of a player. And if they build around him a little bit better, they'll be really good in a couple of years. But I think the Warriors are just a better team, and they've showed it, and they have the experience. And I think that Warriors are going to go back to the finals, and I really want a Steph Curry finals MVP.
I agree. I think it's a sweep.
I agree.
The kiss of death. Before, I know we've ran long, but I did want to mention, because we didn't bring this up, that Dana Duckworth stepped down last week. We brought that up. Mm-hmm. We said that they're going to have to find a new coach pretty fast. We didn't know who it would be. So today they announced their new coach is going to be Ashley Priest-Johnston. She was a member of the back-to-back national championship squad that we had early in the 2010s. So that's a big move for them, bringing in somebody who's young, had some recent success with the gymnastics program as being a part of it, as not a player. I don't know what they call them in gymnastics, but a teammate, team member. Yeah, gymnast, I guess is the word. So they brought her in. As far as I know, I don't obviously know too much about gymnastics. As far as I know, most people are pretty excited about that hire, and she's got a pretty good squad. We're always in contention, so I just wanted to throw that in there to sprinkle in with some Bama stuff.
Yeah,
but that's all I got. We had some fun tonight. We are looking for writers for our website, sportsflashmedia.co. So if anybody is interested and knows somebody that might be interested in just joining our team, hopping on, doing some articles. I mean, there's no requirements for it. That's the biggest question I get is, do I have to write a certain amount of articles? No, it's just whenever you're free. We're just looking to grow our army. So that's about it. I call it an army. I don't know what to call it.